What's up guys, James here, how you doing? So, sorry I haven't made a video in a little while. I've just moved house, I'm now living with 8 people, and that kind of makes it difficult to actually get the privacy to make a video. Now, so for that reason, I haven't done my 500 subscriber answer video just yet, so if you've got any questions for me, send me a video response to my 500 subscriber question video, which I'll link down below, and I should be able to get that done fairly soon. Now, today's video is going to be about my views on feminism and the MRM, and it's probably going to piss off quite a lot of people because I've got some fairly heavy criticism for both sides, and it's not out of anger. I'm hoping that this can be constructive. I'd like to see some progress and some maturity for both sides, and I'd actually like to see a temporary truce and like to see us working together for a short amount of time to actually do something which is going to cause some real good. Now, like I said, I see validity for both sides. I also see a lot of bullshit that needs addressing. It almost seems as if feminists and MRAs, for the most part, seem to think that admitting that the other side has any validity somehow invalidates their own point of view, which is complete bullshit. Now, I consider myself a sex-positive, egalitarian MRA. I agree with the sex-positives on the vast majority of the issues they talk about. I also believe that men and women should be given equal opportunities. But the reason I take the MRA label is simply that I see a lot more discrimination towards men than I do women. And I'm happy for people to disagree with that, provided that they don't completely ignore the fact that there are lots of issues that men face. Now, before I came to YouTube, I was actually quite anti-feminist, a hell of a lot more so than I am now. When I was growing up, it seemed that violence against men was treated as acceptable, whereas violence against women is 100% wrong 100% of the time. Now, I agree with that bit, but it seems that if a woman slaps a man, at best nobody gives a shit. At worst, they'll assume that he simply must have done something to deserve it. Men are the vast majority of victims of nearly every form of violence, except for rape. Circumcising male babies is deemed acceptable, whereas circumcising female babies is completely unacceptable. When I was growing up, I was taught that I had to let girls and women win at things. I was taught that I had to apologise to them even when I hadn't done anything wrong. I saw girls getting into less trouble at school. The legal system certainly gives women much more lenient sentencing than they do to men. When it comes to child custody cases, men are treated like absolute scum of the earth. We're treated like criminals. We're treated as guilty until proven innocent. In that respect, we're taught not to show pain, that nobody cares about our pain, not to admit any form of weakness. Men die 7 years earlier than women, yet worked 5 years longer and had half the amount of time to enjoy retirement. Girls can choose to play with a Barbie or an action man or climb trees without being judged harshly because of it. Yet, if a boy plays with a Barbie or does ballet, he's going to get a lot of shit for doing that. He's going to be treated like there's something wrong with him. women can choose to work or stay at home, yet there's still this massive stigma attached to being a house husband. When I worked with women, I saw absolutely zero evidence of the supposed pay gap, yet I was expected to, as well as doing all of the work which women did, I had to take, maybe half an hour or an hour out of my day to do physical jobs which women were either unwilling or unable to do. Sexism towards women is deemed completely unacceptable, yet women can say things like men can't multitask, men don't listen, men are stupid, men only think about sex, or laugh at the idea of a man having his penis chopped off. Society seemed to be completely blind towards when it comes to sexism towards men. It seems that women have all of the perks which men traditionally had, yet if they chose to, they didn't have to deal with the responsibilities. It seemed that women could either be treated as adults or children, depending on which is most advantageous to them at the time, whilst men have no choice in, they're told to man up, to be a man, that they can't show any form of weakness, they can't show any form of femininity. Now, this is ludicrous and damaging to both sexes, to men for very obvious reasons, and to women because the competent, self-reliant women out there have to prove themselves that much more. When it comes to feminism in the media, I saw a lot of the quite radical side, talking about how women are repressed and discriminated against, and how men are violent and sexist, and all of this stuff. And I really just didn't take it very seriously at the time. But when I came to YouTube and I saw the sex positives videos, fighting for the LGBT rights, fighting against the pro-lifers, fighting against slut-shaming, fighting for their rights to contraception, for sex workers' rights, complaining about the disgusting actions of the radical feminists, and against the infantilization of women, which hurts both sexes. I thought, yeah, I can really get behind this movement. Here's a brand of feminism which I actually have some fucking respect for. Now, a lot of these issues I don't see as female exclusive. When it comes to things like abortion, that certainly fucking affects men as well. If my girlfriend didn't have the right to an abortion, that is certainly going to affect me. But that's kind of irrelevant. I agree with the sex positive feminists on the vast majority of the issues which are actually important to them. There's a lot of you who I would either consider to be friends as well, but that's not going to let you off the hook. I do have some pretty strong criticism. Firstly, and I am unapologetically angry about this one, is the blanket hatred towards the whole MRM just because some MRAs make blanket statements about feminists. The fact that I even have to explain the hypocrisy here is just absolutely fucking mind-blowing to me. I've heard someone try and rationalise this by saying the vast majority of MRAs do this, but the vast majority of feminists aren't radfems. To which I say, well, for a start, I know more MRAs who don't make blanket statements towards feminists than I do feminists who don't make blanket statements towards MRAs. And yes, whilst it may be true that most feminists aren't radical feminists, when it comes to who has the political power, who's making the gender-based laws, who's making the laws which infantilize women and treat men as violent criminals, yes, that's the radfems. They're the ones who hold nearly all of the political power in that regards, and the sex-positive feminists, for the most part, understand this. They go on about it quite a lot. So if you want to hold the moral high ground, please stop making these ridiculous, gross generalisations. The level of hatred I see towards the MRM is just absolutely sickening, comparing us to the PUAs or the TFL. Which is ludicrous, claiming that we're all a bunch of angry, violent, white, right-wing Christian males who can't get laid and hate women and want to put society back 100 years to when women couldn't vote or work. Well, for a start, I know liberal MRAs, I know black MRAs, I know female MRAs, I know transgendered MRAs, and people like me, and there are a lot of MRAs who have the egalitarian view that I do, certainly don't want to put society back to when women couldn't vote or work. There's not enough time in this video, it's getting long enough already for me to address all of these lies, but the idea that MRAs hate women is so pervasive that I feel that it needs addressing. I have never, not once, heard an MRA claim to hate women. Feminism, yes, I've heard quite a few MRAs say that, and whilst I disagree with the way they use the gross generalisations, feminism is an ideology. Women is a demographic of people. To claim that hating feminism is the same as hating women is like claiming that hating National Socialism is the same as hating Germans. Now, yes, I agree, a lot of MRAs do generalise too much, but when we're talking about the harm done by feminism, we're talking about on the political level, which is, as I've already said, for the most part, controlled by the Radfems. As for why MRAs spend so much of their time focusing on feminism, perhaps that's because feminists from nearly every camp have opposed us at absolutely every single fucking turn. I see more anti-MRA videos in my subscription box than I see MRA videos. If you type MRA into Google, you get 4 or 5 anti-MRA pages before you get a pro-MRA page. So perhaps if you want to hold the moral high ground, perhaps you should stop generalising us first. Another criticism I have of sex positives as a whole is when they try to bring up something MRAs haven't talked about to assert their own moral superiority. Oh, MRAs haven't talked about prison rape, so that proves you don't actually care about men and you just want to hate on feminism. Bull fucking shit. This is a dishonest tactic. For a start, look and you'll see that yes, MRAs have discussed this matter, and furthermore, this is just an attempt to discredit us whilst making yourselves look good. I could quite easily do the same thing about female circumcision. Oh, I haven't heard any feminists talk about female circumcision, even though I haven't bothered to look. So yeah, this just proves that that feminists don't care about women in Africa. They just want to get the government to give them some entitlement. So yeah, this proves that feminists don't care about women. They just want entitlement, and it shows how good we are. It's a bullshit fucking argument. You can always find a topic which hasn't been discussed in a while. Now, as for the sex positive label, Divinity recently referred to her brand of feminism as Feminism 2.0 because they've adapted to the changes which the second wave has brought about and have rejected some of the bad information, etc. And yes, I do agree with that premise, but always remember that you aren't perfect. Now that's not directed at you, Divinity, but at the sex positive community as a whole. You think that maybe in another 20, 25 years, somebody like Divinity isn't going to look back at the sex positive community today and see it as equally flawed as you would see the second wavers. No, the sex-positive feminism is going to evolve, and perhaps in another 25 years, the MRM and sex positives may have actually merged somewhat to a position of true egalitarianism. Now, the reason I bring this up is that I still see some members of the sex positives out there who still act dogmatically. There's still sex positives who try to force the observations to fit within the framework of patriarchy, rape culture, and white male privilege. Three theories which, for the most part, I do quite strongly reject. And I see sex positives out there who act nearly as bigoted towards forms of sex and relationships which they personally find distasteful as some homophobes do. I'm talking about things like race play, age play, male dominance, furries, and other forms of sexual acts which hurt absolutely nobody and are between consenting adults. And when I see creep shaming, and when I see them disapprove of large age gaps with an older man and a 20-year-old woman, for example, that's being quite sex negative, and I've seen plenty of examples of that, many of which haven't been called out by the rest of the sex positive community. And finally, when you mock the very idea that the MRM is needed, when people deny that men also face problems, you're acting like radfems. You're basically admitting that you accept patriarchy theory because you find the very notion that men's lives aren't perfect ridiculous. You don't like that, do you? Well, some of you seem perfectly happy to compare us to the radfems, even though we're the exact opposite. And a lot of the people in the sex positive community are just as guilty as everything which they accuse the MRM of. Right, now on to the MRAs. Okay, so it seems that some of you are actually trying to make people hate you. I mean, you're just as guilty as many of the feminists I've mentioned for making the gross generalizations. There's a lot of sex positives who would be on our side on a lot of issues if we just treated them with a little bit more respect. And when it comes to liberals, I've seen so many really hateful videos towards liberals by certain MRAs. And again, you're going to be alienating a large percentage of people who would otherwise be on your side. And yes, I understand that there are certain policies which have been put in place by liberals which have been protecting women at the detriment of men and that kind of thing. But, focus on those issues, explain what those issues are, and maybe you'll persuade a few minds. I've unsubscribed from a few MRAs when they've just done vicious attack videos towards liberals before, because for the most part, I am a liberal when it comes to social equality and that kind of thing. Liberals generally go for a lot of policies which I very, very strongly agree with. So yeah, you're going to be alienating a lot of people who would otherwise be on your side. And in case you haven't noticed, there's not really that many of us. We're not going to win through a brute force method. Using that while we're still a very small, using that kind of technique whilst we're still a very small, marginalised group is just going to make people think that we're nut jobs. It's going to make people not want to be associated with us. We should be focusing on actually getting some support and growing on our numbers. And the approach that many of you are using at the moment really isn't working too well towards that goal. Some other things which I find a bit ridiculous is the overuse of terms like mangina and white knighting. Yes, I think there's appropriate times to use those words, but they are really overused, and it kind of makes us look bad. And finally, when it comes to, there's a lot of people who say that the things that we're saying are conspiracy theories, and some of them are. There's a lot of things which some feminists say, which, I would say are complete conspiracy theories. But if you've got something to say which really challenges people's preconceptions, especially when it comes to certain power influence in governments, etc., then you're really going to have to come up with some solid evidence to show that this is the case, or again we're going to end up looking like nut jobs in that regard. So yeah, that's just a little bit of something to think about. I do think that we should be focusing on growing our numbers a little more and actually getting people on our side, which we're not doing very well at the moment. Right then, if I haven't alienated absolutely every single last one of you by now, I'd like to actually promote the idea of MRAs and feminists putting aside their differences for a while and actually working together in order to help both men and women. And I'd like us to have a charity blogtv event where we're going to raise money for one male-orientated charity and one female-orientated charity. Now, I'm thinking for the male charity, we're going to raise money for Foregen, which is trying to raise money to do a clinical trial to test a treatment to regrow foreskins. Then they should end up being identical to someone who's naturally uncut, and it'll regrow all of the nerves and stuff. So they should have all of the sensitivity that they would have normally had, and it will look completely natural as well. Bear in mind this is just a clinical trial. There's a chance that it's not going to work. As there always is with these kind of things, but the science behind it seems to be pretty sound from what I've seen. I haven't uncovered anything which shows Foregen to be a scam or anything like that. But if anyone has any contradictory information, please let me know, because I don't want this to go the same way as the Coney 2012 or Love 148 fiasco. As for the female-orientated charity, I'll let the feminists decide on that one. But with the stipulation that it has to be a secular charity, and it also shouldn't have any strong political leaning, because I want both of the charities chosen to be ones which we can all completely agree on. So I'm going to need a lot of help with this, obviously. So feminists and MRAs who want to be involved, please PM me and let me know. If anyone wants to share the burden of the responsibility for organising this, please contact me as well. I'd like someone who knows a bit about the financial side of this, someone like DevShell, hopefully someone who's done this kind of thing before. I wouldn't like to really do it through PayPal, for the simple fact that they take quite a big percentage of the money which comes in. So if there's a better way of doing it, I'd like to really know about that. And the money which comes in from the Blog TV event shall be cut completely 50-50 between the two charities. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.